this is an interesting topic. It's a damn sorry one. It's a shame that we're at this place.
Yes, it is.
It's a pitiful discussion to have. And I know that this makes me a get off your lawn guy. And this makes me old, and it makes me the guy that is waving my fist at the clouds and whatever meme you want to use when describing somebody being antiquated, outdated, detached from reality, old, whatever you want to say. I'm sorry, man. I do not understand why you're having to worry about effort. I mean, it's one thing to be bad. I've played on bad teams before, awful teams before, and I've played on really good teams, obviously not at this level. I understand that. But competition is competition. And if you're somebody who throws yourself into a competition that you are actually taking seriously, I'm not talking about ping pong with your 7-year-old son. I'm talking about real competition. I don't understand how it's not like that's a given. That should be a given. I should never have to worry that somebody isn't trying. I've always thought that was absurd. I want to curse when I hear that stuff. That's nonsense. I should never have to implore you to give a damn about fighting and competing on every play. It seems to me it is completely standard. This is not an NIL thing. Because teams before NIL, you would hear this about all over the country.
Yeah, we had a couple of them in the last 10 years.
Yes. I mean, long before NIL, there were teams that we called into question. Jimbo at the end of his time, go all the way back to the lost decade with Bowden. Some of those teams where you're like, looks like some guys decided to check out. I've never, ever understood it. And that doesn't I'm not trying to say I'm a better competitor than everybody else or I'm better than anybody else. It's just that football is hard. And, man, half-stepping is a good way to, A, get hurt, and, B, you look like a fool. You look like a fool. The video they played last week of Levante David's rookie season, the Bucs are getting the break speed off them by 40 in an NFL football game. That should never happen, ever. Nobody should be ever down by 50 or 45 points in an NFL football game. And the Bucs were, and he snapped. And they had the mic. They were doing a long interview with him about who he is and what his career has been about and all that. They're like, we found this clip of you losing it your rookie season. And he sounds like he's almost in tears. He's on the sideline after another touchdown. And I don't remember who it was against, maybe Atlanta. And he comes over to the sideline and he whips his helmet up against the
if it was Atlanta, that was actually a Thursday night game.
Yeah, and he's livid. And he comes over to the sidelines and he slams his helmet down and he's looking at veteran players. He's like, what the hell's wrong with you all? This is embarrassing. What are you doing? Like he could tell that there were guys checking out. And he loses it to the point where coaches have to come over and get a hold of him because it looks like he might fight somebody. Like it may go down. And I watched it and I'm like, well, kind of explains how my man had a Hall of Fame career. He effing cares and takes it seriously and is professional and is not just because they're not the better team. You're not going to mail in a rep. We shouldn't be talking about this every Saturday. I swear to God, every week now, this is a conversation. It is pathetic. And if you catch somebody half-stepping, they got to go. They got to go sit their ass. Read Henshaw's comments to Ira on the Henshaw's House piece that's up on Warchant right now. Sorry. He talks about that's the thing he's most disappointed about. Coach, I agree with you. I can't believe we're sitting here talking about effort. They're not a good team. They could give the greatest effort that they've ever played with this Saturday and lose by 4 touchdowns. But I better not be questioning whether or not they're trying.
Here's the problem. The yellow alert is they're far more talented than most of their competition that they've faced to this point in the season. And they're not even close in some of these games. That's the yellow alert. The red alert is situations like the second half against SMU after the ball goes off of Morlock and, SMU scores in a short field. You see it. They're broken. They're broken-spirited. And when you're this bad, when you're 1-4 and you're taking on a team that is likely to smoke you, you have to be on quit watch. I mean, I recall, Willie's one home game against Clemson. He only got one of them. It was a close game after a quarter. It was like 3-3. It was something like that after the first quarter. But by halftime, you had Naquan Murray spiking the helmet onto the concrete as he got kicked out of the game.
Yeah.
Spiking our helmet onto the concrete as you walk into the tunnel.
It's insane. Yeah, I remember it.
Okay. the situation around this Clemson game is similar to that one where you're teetering. And I think I agree with you. It is a BS discussion that it has to be had in the first place, but it's also a legitimate question. I think it's a legitimate question because when you're not living up to your potential before we get to this moment, something's wrong. And it could be the coaches, but it could be investment level from the players. And now you are 1-4, and here they come. And they're pissed, and they have been since they lost to Georgia. I hope they try, but I'm not counting on it.
I can't fathom that you wouldn't try. Almost out of pure fear of getting run roughshod over. And again, this is not NIL. This is not. This is something I think bigger than NIL. There's something else wrong. I'm not in that locker room. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. There are plenty of football teams every weekend that aren't very good, whose kids are making NIL money, and who compete and who fight and try and are, listen, we were sure, a lot of people were anyhow, that Florida's team, based on social media and some things they had done, liking tweets that said fire their head coach, things like that they would quit, right? I know Mississippi State's terrible, but they went on the road and housed that team. You can't do that if you're not trying. And they've been bad for 4 years in a row. There are lots of examples where you just don't, you have to compete. I don't, that is really, really strange to me. And it's a conversation that annoys me beyond reason. I have a hard time understanding the mindset that you have to be in to be out on a field in a game. I'm not talking about practice now. There have been some practices where me and anybody else that's ever played the game maybe did not give 100% on a Tuesday.
It sounds like this Tuesday was one of those.
But I'm saying that can happen. It's practice. It's 100 and humid in Florida. It's Tuesday. It's, we're an hour and a half in.
Well, okay.
I can see a rep that is not taking that 100%. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a game, man.
I hear you, and it fires me up too. But you would agree that this is a legitimate question in the air, right?
Yeah, but it's probably the thing that annoys me the most. Like, I have resigned myself to the fact that this is not a good football team. I've resigned myself to the fact that the coaches and the head coach in particular made some mistakes coming into the season, and we are paying a dear price for those mistakes, and this is going to end poorly this year, okay? Well, the jury's out about next year, but for now, we'll just say this year, okay? All these things are accurate statements. There's no denial, no deflection. This is awful, completely unacceptable, etc. But discussing whether or not somebody wants to be out on the field on a game day competing,